I never believed in fate. Not until the night everything in my life went completely wrong, and somehow it led me straight to her. It was supposed to be one of the worst days of my life. My job had just been cut after 7 years. My fiancée called off our engagement 2 weeks before the wedding, and my car decided to break down in the middle of a rainstorm on an empty highway outside Chicago. I was sitting there, soaked, angry, and honestly a little lost, when she knocked on my window. "Hey, you okay in there?" That voice, calm, confident, with a little laughter in it, cut through the sound of rain. She was standing there holding an umbrella, wearing a red coat that somehow stood out even in the gray downpour. Her name was Emily. She offered to give me a ride to the nearest gas station. I didn't know then that it would be the beginning of the best and most unexpected chapter of my life. We talked in her car for what felt like hours. It was strange, like we'd known each other for years, even though I had just met her. She was a photographer new in town, driving home after a canceled shoot. I told her about my job, my breakup, how lost I felt. Instead of pity, she smiled and said, "Maybe the universe is just clearing space for something better." I didn't believe her at the time, but she was right. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about her. She'd given me her number, just in case you need another rescue mission, she'd said with a smirk. And one night, after too much whiskey and even more loneliness, I texted her. That text turned into a conversation. That conversation turned into coffee. And that coffee turned into a connection deeper than anything I'd ever felt. Emily had this light about her. She made the simplest things feel alive. We'd walk by the lake at midnight. She'd talk about how she saw the world through her camera lens, and I'd find myself laughing in ways I hadn't in years. I didn't realize it then, but I was falling in love, not in the movie kind of way, but in the quiet, real, terrifying kind of way. She had her scars too. She'd been through a bad breakup, had lost her dad young, and had a complicated relationship with her mom who never believed in her photography dreams. But instead of bitterness, Emily carried warmth, like she refused to let the world make her cold. One night, we were sitting in her tiny apartment, surrounded by photos she'd taken. City lights, strangers smiling, waves crashing against cliffs. She looked at me and said, "You ever think some people come into your life just to prove you were wrong about love?" That's when I kissed her. It wasn't planned, it wasn't perfect, but it felt like coming home. From that moment on, Emily and I were inseparable. We took weekend trips. She dragged me to art galleries, and I helped her set up her first real photography exhibition. I'd never seen anyone so passionate about something. Watching her chase her dreams made me want to be better, too. When I finally got a new job, one I actually loved this time, we celebrated with cheap champagne and pizza on the floor. She said, "See, the universe had a plan all along. But life isn't a straight line." Just when everything felt perfect, Emily got an offer to work in New York. Her dream city, her dream project. And I was faced with a choice I never thought I'd have to make. Follow her or stay behind. She told me, "I don't want you to give up your life for me." But I couldn't imagine my life without her. So I took a risk. I followed her to New York. Moving to New York was both the most exciting and the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. I had no job lined up, just some savings and a belief that if I was with Emily, everything else would fall into place. We found a small apartment in Brooklyn, old floors that creaked, walls thin enough to hear our neighbors arguing, but to us, it felt like the center of the universe. She'd hang her photos on the walls. I'd make coffee in the mornings, and for a while, it really did feel like the perfect chapter. But New York has a way of testing people. Emily's photography career started taking off, faster than either of us expected. She was shooting magazine covers, getting invited to art shows, meeting people I'd only seen in interviews. I was proud of her. God, I was so proud. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little small next to her sometimes. I eventually landed a job at a marketing agency. Good pay, long hours. It wasn't bad, just hollow. Every day felt like I was running just to stay in place, while Emily was flying. At first, it didn't matter. We'd meet late at night, share stories about our days, eat takeout on the rooftop, talk about the future. But then the distance started to sneak in, small, quiet things that you don't notice until it's already too late. She'd come home later, exhausted, sometimes not at all. I'd wake up to find her asleep on the couch, camera in her lap, her phone full of unread messages. When I tried to talk about it, she'd smile and say, "It's just a busy week, I promise." I believed her, because that's what you do when you love someone. You trust even when it hurts. Then one night, she didn't come home at all. Her phone went straight to voicemail. I sat up waiting, watching the lights of the city flicker through our window, my stomach twisting with a feeling I didn't want to name. Around 4 a.m., I heard the key turn in the door. She looked different. Not guilty, not scared, just tired. "I crashed at Claire's after the shoot," she said softly. "I didn't want to wake you." Something in me wanted to push, to ask questions, but instead, I just nodded, because I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend, the insecure one. But the truth? I was scared. Scared that the city I followed her to was slowly stealing her from me. A few weeks later, Emily was offered a 6-month photography contract in Paris. Paris. She looked at me like she was waiting for me to tell her what to do. I wanted to beg her to stay, to say I couldn't handle another distance. But the words that came out were, "You have to go. You've worked for this your whole life." She cried. I did too, but she went. The first few weeks apart were brutal. I threw myself into work, counting down days until she'd come back. We texted, we FaceTimed, but there was always something missing, that warmth, that spark that made everything feel alive. Then one night, she called me from Paris. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her voice was shaking. I froze. Every nightmare I tried to bury came rushing back. But instead of a confession, she said, "I miss you. I thought this was what I wanted, but none of it feels right without you." I could hear the tears in her voice. That was the moment I realized love isn't about being perfect or fearless. It's about choosing each other, even when everything else falls apart. She came back early. No grand gestures, no airport reunion scene. Just a quiet knock on my apartment door, and her standing there with her suitcase, eyes red, whispering, "I'm home." We didn't speak for a while. We just held each other, and for the first time in months, I felt calm. That night, we sat on the roof again, same city skyline, same old creaky chairs. She leaned on my shoulder and said, "Maybe love isn't about finding the right path. It's about walking to the wrong ones together." And I believed her. When Emily came back from Paris, it felt like stepping into a life we'd both outgrown, and yet, somehow, it still fit. The first few weeks were awkward, in that quiet way when two people love each other but are afraid to break the fragile peace they just found. She unpacked slowly, leaving her camera bag near the window, the same spot it used to be before she left. I didn't touch it. I didn't ask questions. We were learning each other again. The way she liked her coffee now, with oat milk instead of cream. The way her laugh had changed, slightly softer, but still hers. The city outside hadn't stopped moving, but inside that small apartment, time slowed. One evening, as we sat on the couch, Emily said, "Do you ever feel like we broke something we'll never fix?" I looked at her, then down at her hand in mine. "Maybe, but I think we can build something new from it." She smiled, not the bright, public smile she used for the camera, but the quiet one, the one that used to make me fall in love all over again. And that's what we did. We rebuilt piece by piece. It wasn't easy. Trust doesn't magically reappear. It's earned one honest conversation at a time. We started going on late-night walks again, talking about nothing and everything. Sometimes she'd tell me about Paris, about the loneliness, the silence in hotel rooms, the night she thought about calling but didn't. I told her about the emptiness I felt, how I'd wake up reaching for her and find only cold sheets. There were tears, but there was laughter, too. We started spending weekends exploring new corners of New York. Little diners in Queens, bookstores in the Village, the ferry to Staten Island just to watch the skyline disappear. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. About 3 months after she came back, she got a call from a magazine offering her a big cover shoot in Los Angeles. I held my breath when she told me. She must have seen the flicker of fear in my eyes because she smiled and said, "I'm not going anywhere without you." That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept without anxiety clawing at my chest. A few weeks later, she asked if I wanted to come with her to one of her art shows, the first since Paris. I went, not sure what to expect. There were dozens of photos, cityscapes, faces, reflections, but then I saw it. In the middle of the wall was a picture she'd taken in Brooklyn years ago, my hands holding hers across the rooftop table, blurry lights in the background. Underneath, the title read, "Found Home." I felt my throat tighten. After the show, I asked her why she chose that photo. She looked at me and said, "Because everything I was searching for, I already had." That night, we walked home in silence, hand in hand. When we got back, I poured us wine, and before I could say anything, she looked at me and whispered, "I don't want to lose this again. Not ever." I didn't propose right away. It took time. We both wanted to be sure we weren't just chasing nostalgia. But about 6 months later, we took a trip upstate to a quiet cabin surrounded by autumn colors. We spent the weekend hiking, cooking, taking photos of everything, even the coffee mugs on the porch. On the last morning, we were watching the sunrise when I turned to her and said, "You once told me love is about walking to the wrong paths together. I think we found the right one." She smiled, eyes wet with tears, and before I could finish fumbling for the ring, she whispered, "Yes." We both laughed. Not the kind of laughter you hear in movies, but the kind that shakes your shoulders and fills your chest with something warm. We got married in the spring. It was small, family, a few close friends, and a rooftop in Brooklyn where it all began. During the ceremony, as she read her vows, I realized how far we'd come, from that dorm room coffee shop to heartbreak, to distance, to rediscovering love in the middle of chaos. In her vows, she said, I don't believe in perfect people, but I believe in perfect choices. And you were mine. Afterward, we danced under string lights while the city hummed below. For a moment, I thought about how close we'd come to losing it all, how fragile everything had been, and how somehow we'd held on anyway. Years later, when people ask me if I believe in fate, I say no. But I believe in timing, in second chances, in the quiet magic that happens when two people refuse to give up on each other. Emily still takes photos, and I still write sometimes. We live in a slightly bigger apartment now, still in Brooklyn, still with creaky floors, and every time I hear them squeak under our feet, I smile, because that sound means we're still here, still choosing each other, still finding home.